Can you hear my TV?
No. Okay. Hey there, everybody. Mandy and Karis here, and thank you so much for allowing us to come into your home today and to be a part of your day. We're hoping that all of you can hear us and see us. Give a little hey if you can see us and hear us. We had a really good week off last week. Karis and I went to Disney World. We're still kind of sporting. I'm sporting a little bit of my Disney stuff. I can't let it go. But we are so happy to be back and to be back into the swing of things and to get our podcast rolling back at 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning. So again, if you are here, please let us know that you're here so we know that you can see us and that you can hear us. So Karis is sharing it into our group called the Purposeful Woman. And it is basically a group, just to tell you a little bit about it, is basically a group for women that's full of purpose. I mean, because we're all full of purpose. So if you would like to join that group, we share a lot of different things, not just these podcasts, but a lot of different blogs and inspiration and encouragement and prayers and scriptures and all kinds of stuff. So if you need a little bit more encouragement and all of that in your life, which I think all of us do, please join us over there, and we will drop a link in the comments after this. So today we are talking about where are you, God? Because there are so many people asking that question right now with all kinds of things going on. So I'm going to share it into my like page, and Karis is going to get us started.
Yes. So like Mandy said, we are talking about where are you, God? And I know that myself and Mandy, as we talk about different subjects that we want to talk about every week, we talk about things that either we have been through or things that we're going through. So if we're talking about this today, asking, the question, where are you, God? I can promise you, I have asked this question myself. I know just from mine and Mandy's conversation, she's been there. And, sometimes we're still going through these things. So we want you to know that if you're there right now and you are asking that question, we're not doing this podcast today for you to feel shame or for you to feel guilt. We're doing this podcast together today with all of you to help all of us through it, to find answers, to find God's truth, to find what he says. And we do ask that question, where are you, God? Because we go through so many hard things. I mean, we made a list of things, there's divorce, there's depression, there's anxiety, there's maybe you have a miscarriage, maybe you lost your job, maybe there is a health issue that's come up for you in your life, or maybe you lost a friend or a loved one in a car accident, or maybe you have a child who's kind of made some bad choices, and you're just kind of like, God, I raised my child in church, I did all these things, and where are you now? So, I mean, there's natural disasters that happen. You've got Hurricane Harvey that just happened, and now here's Hurricane Irma that's out in the ocean, and we don't really know what's going on with that. And you've got North Korea, and you've got terrorism. I mean, there's just so much going on, and we ask, we say, God, where are you? And so we kind of wanted to start today with scripture. With, we've talked about this before in other podcasts about how, God has given us his truth. He's given us his word. And, it tells us in John 16, verse 33, and this is Jesus himself talking. And he said, I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. In this world, you will have tribulation and distress and suffering, but be courageous, be confident, be undaunted, and filled with joy. I, Jesus, I have overcome the world. So he's telling us there, hey, you're going to have suffering, you're going to have all these things going on. And that all goes back to the beginning of creation. God created the world, and we know that it says in Genesis that what he created was good. And when he created it, it was perfect. It was good. He made, the Garden of Eden. He made Adam and Eve. And then it wasn't God who made the choice to disobey and eat the fruit. It was Adam and Eve. It was humans who made that choice, and God gave us, he created us to be able to choose, and we have an enemy. Just like Adam and Eve had an enemy, Satan came and he deceived them. He deceived them, and because of the choices they made, it opened the door to cause an imperfect world, to bring about suffering, bring about trials and tribulations. And that's not the way it started, but that's where we are now because of where it all began thousands of years ago. And so here we are, he tells us that we're going to have all these sufferings and we're going to have hard times, but he's there with us. And, I think to myself, and I know that Mandy and I talked about this, God himself knew, okay, they've made this choice, they've made this decision. So now I'm going to send my son, Jesus, to go and suffer the worst suffering possible, to suffer death, to suffer humiliation, to die on that cross for our greater good, for the good of us, because he knew the only way for us to get salvation and to be with him for eternity was for Jesus, his only son, to come and to suffer. So we want you to understand, and we need to understand even for ourselves, that yes, we have dealt with suffering and gone through those hard times, but God has gone through that suffering too when he didn't have to. He is perfect. He is perfect. But because of his love for us, he sent his son Jesus to suffer and to go through things like we have had to suffer out of love and out of our greater good, out of eternity for us. So he sees things differently than us. So yes, there were choices made at the beginning of time, but in that, God had to make a hard choice too. And he did it because he loved us and he wanted us to know that we're not alone.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And we all have choices that we have to make every single day, and those choices are going to affect your future regardless. And we're not saying in any way that you cause all of these bad things to happen. I mean, we're not saying that God causes them or anything like that. What we are just saying is choices. You have a free will to make a choice. And sometimes those things have ripple effects. And I know, I spoke to some teenagers not too long ago, and I was telling them, the choices that you make today, meaning as them being teenagers, will affect you sometime in the future. It may not affect you tomorrow. It may not affect you a year from now, but it may affect you. It may not. I mean, and I gave the example of the night before I'd stayed up and worked until midnight. Well, the next day I was paying for it. That was that ripple effect. I was tired. I was, cranky and crabby. And that was a repercussion of the choice that I had made. That is so minor, but I mean, there are things in my life that I've made choices, bad choices too. And so, if you're a Christian, you've always heard the enemy always, comes in through a little creak or a little crack in the wall, or even just, a crack in the window or whatever. He's not just going to come full blown and say, hey, I'm here, I'm ready to party. I mean, he's going to come in very easily, and he's just going to be very silent about it. And then all of a sudden your guard's down, or, I mean, I know this may sound it sounds so trivial, but seriously, the next day after I'd worked until midnight, I was tired. My guard was down a little bit, so it could have happened. So we're just saying the choices you make do have effects on you throughout your life, and those things can affect what happens, and it can affect, and it can lead you to going, where are you, God? What have I done wrong? And it's nothing so much as, we all have good choices and bad choices. Some of them are bad choices, but no matter through the bad choices, he's still not going to leave.
Right.
You may feel separated, but he hasn't left you.
Yeah.
So, that kind of leads us to, you've got to be honest and tell God. You've got to tell him, I messed up. Help me, because he can't without you telling him.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're going through a hard time and you're going through a bad time, and a lot of times things may come in your life you have absolutely no control over.
Absolutely.
I mean, maybe you didn't make any bad choices. Maybe you were the best employee at work and you worked hard and you showed up 15 minutes early and you stayed 15 minutes late and you did double the work that everybody else and you still lost your job. There was nothing more that you could have done. So in other situations, it has nothing to do with what you did or you didn't do.
Right.
We just have to remember, God's word tells us that the enemy is looking for whom he can devour. He's looking for what he can steal, kill, and destroy. So we know that we have a real enemy. And then we know that God tells us, he came so that we would have life and have it abundantly. Right. And so when we're there, when we're in that hard time and we're like, God, where are you? It's very easy. I know it was for me to hide from God. I was afraid to be honest. I was afraid to say.
Hide from him.
He knew everything that I was thinking. He knew, when I, was dealing with depression and when I was dealing with losing a baby and when I was dealing with feeling like I wasn't needed here on this earth, I was asking him, God, where are you? I'm in this dark, scary pit all by myself. And I feel like you've left me, but I was afraid to tell God because I was afraid. I think I was afraid of making him mad. I was afraid of failing him. And I was afraid of letting all that out because I had never been honest like that before. But then I had to learn. I had to learn that God cannot heal what we don't reveal.
Right.
God cannot heal what we do not reveal. And he needed me to confess, to say out loud what was going on in my body. Studies show when you keep anger or resentment or bitterness or all that stuff inside, it can affect your body in bad ways. Like it can physically hurt you. Like that's not just a spiritual thing. So I had to get it out. I had to say, God, where are you? God. And I was even angry at God. And I'll be honest with y'all and tell y'all, I was angry because my husband and I, we were leading worship, things were going great, and bam, it all just turned. And I got angry because that was a desire of my heart. And then all those things happened. And so I had to begin to reveal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had to begin to reveal. I had to take my mask off and I had to confess and I had to get all those things out. And once I began to get that out and get those hurts out, those feelings of not feeling good enough, losing a baby, the bitterness, the anxiety, once I got all that out, what was in darkness, it got put into light. Right. And God was able to begin to heal those places. And in doing that, before I went through all of those things, I was a Christian that was very cold-hearted, very much suck it up. If you're going through hard times, that's on you. Or, I just wasn't I was just cold. And I didn't understand. I didn't have a heart for people like I needed to, the way that Jesus did. He came for the sick. He came for the hurting. And I acted like I was perfect all the time. And then I went through all those things. And God began to heal the things that I would finally begin to reveal to him. And I finally was able to look at people like Jesus and see them with love and compassion. And he gave me a testimony to share. He gave me a story to share. And like I was telling Mandy today, if I never would have gone through those things, I may not be sitting here doing a podcast, right, with you right now if I wouldn't have dealt with those things, because I wouldn't have a heart to help other women who I know who are sitting across from us or listening to this podcast right now, going through the same thing. And if I wouldn't have been there, I wouldn't have that heart to help others like Jesus did. I truly believe that I would have had the wrong focus in my life.
Right. But you allowed him to help you. And that's the key.
Yeah.
That's the key, to create to take a bad situation or to take a wrong decision that you made and to turn it into a testimony. Yeah. You've got to be able to, reveal it to him, and you got to allow him to work through you. You can't just be like, okay, well, I told him I got to go. You've got to be able to, you've got to allow him to do it. And he can't do it without you. Yeah. I mean, and then again, that's where that free will comes from too. Right. got to give it to them. And I think that's what's hard.
It is hard. And, I think too, we're such an instant society. We want everything done right now. Right now. Give me my answers right now. Right. Mm-hmm. And it took time. It was a process. I mean, I went through all of that in 2011.
Right.
So, it's a process. There is a, just like when you plant a seed and you're waiting for an apple tree to grow, it starts as a tiny seed and it takes time. So if you're there in this process, right, and you're asking God, where are you? And you begin to be honest with him and just talk about these things that you're going through, it will be a process, and it may be slower at times than what you want.
Right.
But there's a reason. I mean, God, he is going to work it. Romans 8:28, and he uses all things for good for those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. And when I was in that hard time and I was in that dark place, I saw no good there. But now looking back, when I look back on that and I see where he's brought me from, I see how he used that hard, horrible, dark time that I never want to go back through again, how he used it for good in my life and for good for others. But it was a process.
Right. Well, it's just like, I know we talked about this before. It's like that onion, Yeah. You peel back an onion and it's stinky every layer that you go through, but onion has a lot of layers. And I mean, we've got lots of layers. So every time you pull a layer off, there's something else behind it sometimes, you pull another one. I mean, so it all goes back to, we'll never be whole until we're with him. And that's what we're striving to do with all of this too, through the Purposeful Woman, through everything that you do every day, even with your kids. You want your kids to be in eternity with you. So this is why we do all this stuff. So, I mean, and you want to be better today than you were yesterday. And, right. I think that's something that we all should be striving for. And do we fail? Yes. I mean, we fail all the time at that.
Yes.
I have to pick up my pride, and I have to pick up my lack of faith on days and just say, okay, I'm here. I'm sorry. Let's start over. And then he starts peeling back more. And it's like, I didn't know that I even had an issue with that. but it's for the greater good. And it's not just for the greater good of ourselves, but for other people as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, and that kind of brings us to, what do you do while you wait? What do you do while you're going through all this and you're asking, where are you, God? What do you do until you really feel him, hear from him, or whatever? And, no matter what, first and foremost, you should always know that he hadn't left. I mean, he hadn't left, and he's there. But sometimes it's really hard for us to tap into, his and communicate with him. Like Karis was saying, she felt ashamed. She felt like, it's kind of like with your parents. I know I do this with mine, and I'm in my late 30s, but I still don't want to disappoint my parents, So, I think we all go to God, at some point in time going, I don't want to disappoint him, even though he's seen all the garbage that you've done already. So
right.
How we hide, I don't know, but it's a human thing. And,
right.
And that's where those other people come in. And I know we talk about this all the time, but, whenever you're going through hard things, you've got to have people that will stand in the gap for you.
Yes.
So you've got to surround yourself with people that are like-minded, that are spirit-filled, that are going to pray for you unconditionally, no matter what, whenever you can't pray for yourself. And Karis and I have both been in that situation. I will say I have been in that situation recently. Right. I mean, where I can't pray for myself. And it's like, okay, I just feel stale and stagnant, and I don't feel like what am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then the guilt starts setting in, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm helping these ladies, but I can't even help myself. I mean, but it's human, God. I mean, it's just, being human's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is. And, your mind starts playing tricks on you. And that's whenever you have got to have people that you love, that get you, that get what you're going through, that you can tell and say, look, I need you to help me. I need you to stand in the gap for me. I need you to pray for me, because right now I can't.
Yeah.
And, you may even have somebody in your life, and I know my husband is great at this, but you may not have someone in your life that can do this, but find somebody that can pray, and then recite the same prayer afterwards with them.
Yeah.
Because you've got to voice it. You can't just say these the little prayers in your head are fabulous, because I say them all the time throughout the day. But there is nothing like a big blown, from the gut, from the depth of your soul, speaking a prayer or scripture out, because the enemy can't hear you in your head. He's not that powerful. God can, but he can't. So you've got to voice it, and you've got to tell him too, you've got to go, because I'm done with you. I'm done with you doing this to my life. I'm done with all of this. I'm not saying that he does everything. We're not going to give him credit for that, because he's not that smart.
Right.
But still, even so, words are powerful, because you're speaking them. You're going to start believing them, because they're in your own voice, and they're in your, something about speaking something in your own voice does wonders for the soul. So, you got to do those kind of things. I know me and Kara talk about sticky notes all the time too. We have sticky notes all over. Whenever, I think I posted a meme like other day that said, your peeps are the ones who, I don't know what it said. It was I'm going to mess it up, but it was something to the effect of, they get your crazy. So you're like, yeah, I do that too. So that was kind of one of those things with Kara. She was saying, I do sticky notes. I was like, really? I do too. That's so awesome.
Yes.
Just a little thing, but we both love having put sticky notes everywhere. And so I know that I stick a lot on my mirror, or I stick a lot on my coffee maker, because those are two places that I go a lot.
Always go, yes.
Yeah, coffee is a necessity. So I make sure that every time I go there, I repeat that affirmation, or I repeat that prayer, or I repeat that scripture. Yeah. And I taught my kids to do that too. They, ask, Mama, what are you doing? And then, that's planting a seed for them too. Words are so powerful.
Yeah.
You keep speaking over and over, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I've got this, I've got that, all the negative things. Well, it's going to become the truth in your mind, period. Right. Yeah. We've got to start speaking life over ourselves, over our kids, over our churches. Yeah. There are bad things happening in the world, but we got to start speaking that positivity. Yeah. Big word. Positivity. Positivity. Yeah. Big word there, Mandy. But you got to start speaking it. You got to start praying it. So Kara shared this with me earlier. And you want to read it? Because it's yours.
Yeah, I'll read this.
It's absolutely amazing, and it hit home for me. So
when I was going through my just really hard time with depression, which we will eventually get on that subject, because we know 1 out of 5 women battle with depression, anxiety, something like that. But I knew, like Mandy was talking about, that the Bible tells us, God's word tells us, life and death are in the power of the tongue. And so I knew that I had to start changing what I was saying and stop asking, okay, I was so focused on where are you, God? Because I couldn't feel him, and I was just in that bad place, but I knew he was there. He was always there. He was there with me, like we've already said. And let me say this too, as Mandy was talking about, getting people to pray for you. The worst thing you can do in these hard times, and you're asking that question, is to isolate yourself. That is exactly what the enemy wants you to do. He wants you to isolate. He wants you to pull away. He wants you to, he wants to shame you and stop you from moving forward. He wants to keep you from being honest and telling people, hey, I'm struggling. Can you pray for me? Because I'm having a hard time praying for myself. So Don't isolate yourself. Don't do that. Don't pull into the dark. Push yourself out. Find those people like Mandy is saying that you trust and you can be honest with and say, hey, I've got this going on in my life. Because then you begin to fight the enemy and you begin to say to him, I choose to not listen to what you're telling me. But so I wrote down this little affirmation statement that I would read every day. And most days at the beginning, I did not believe any of this, but I knew it was God's word. And if he said it, it had to be true. And I knew that I would eventually, I just had to believe I would get there one day. But so I would say daily, today is a new day. I am a child of God, saved by his grace. I have the mind of Christ. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am blessed and highly favored. I am the head and not the tail, above and not beneath. I will lend and not borrow. My body and heart is healthy, and my blood flows beautifully. I am a great mom and wife. I run my business with integrity. Long life is for me and my family, an abundant life to give to others from out of that abundance. Today is a new day. I have a future and a hope. And it gives me chills reading it right now. But I'm telling y'all, there are days I did not believe that, but I chose to read it anyway. And eventually it helped to change my perspective. And it began to help me slowly. Again, it was a process.
Right.
Come out of that dark place and know that even though I was questioning God, where are you? Reading those words, because that came from his word, began to show me he's right here. And he's going to help me through this hard time. He's going to get me through. And he is going to use this for good in my life and for good around others. I'm sure y'all have heard, we have tests to have a testimony. We have a mess, and it's going to be a message. So all those things is going to be a part of the message that God is giving you to help others.
Or in our case, a hot mess. So it's a hot message.
A hot message. There you go. I mean, that is so true. Yes.
It's the truth, though. We all are a hot mess. I mean,
yes, that's
I'll
exactly
be the first
right.
to admit I'm the biggest hot mess that there is.
I'm with you.
Yeah, and we really challenge you to get the recording of this and stop and start it to where you can actually write that prayer down, because some people, and myself included, sometimes I don't want to look in the Bible at that time, and that's just me being stubborn.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. And so that prayer is something that you stop and start this video and write it down. And we challenge you seriously for the next week, do that. That week's going to turn into a month. That month's going to turn into, 6 months and a year. And you're going to see a huge difference by just speaking that out loud. I mean, like I said, those little prayers are fabulous. They are, because I do a lot of those throughout the day. But you've got to speak it. You've got to own it. That's owning it. And, a lot of us don't want to own it. And I get that, totally get that, and you feel helpless and you don't know how to get out. But I'm going to tell you right now, there is no way that you can get out by yourself. Right. You've got to have him on your side, and you've got to have him helping you get out of that, because Karis, knows, and I know we've both been in deep, dark places. And I mean, Mandy and Karis can do nothing. That's it. There's so far that we can go. And it's that control thing as women. We all want that control. I get that, but at some point we got to take off that mask, as Karis says, let go of that control and just let him have it all. And why that's so hard for us, I don't know, because seriously, it's going to end up so much better than what we can do. I mean, but it is. We're human, Yeah. So, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this is helpful for you, again, as you're there, maybe just asking that question, just understanding that it's okay to ask those questions. God can handle your questions. God can handle your truth, and he can handle just the things that you're going through. So he wants you to talk to him, reveal those things so he can heal those places. And we just want you to know, he told us, that we would suffer, but to have courage and to take heart, that we already know the end. He's overcome and he has won, and we can trust him and just speak those words, speak that life, find people that can help you through this time, and know that through this process, good is going to come out of it. And I'll end, with this, Hurricane Harvey, horrible tragedy, horrible, but look at the good that has come from it. I just think of those maybe who have found hope in Jesus Christ, who had no hope before this hurricane came. And yes, it's done some horrible things, but you see the good of people coming out. You see the body of Christ coming together, which is what we were created to do. And so God is using it for the good. And so hopefully we can look at that and see, just as God is doing that for their life, he will do that for you in your life. So continue to move forward, continue to trust him, be honest with him, and just stay in the process. Hang in there. Let people go through the process with you, and you will come out of it on the other side, and you will see the good.
Absolutely.
And so we wanted to even go ahead and tell you guys, next week we are going to have a special guest with us, and we are going to be talking about divorce. And we know that there are those of you who have been through that. Maybe you're going through that right now, and we have someone who's going to be coming on. She's going to be kind of sharing her testimony of her life and those things that she went through with divorce, and how God, maybe she asked that question, God, where are you? And he's used that for good in her life, and he's using that in her life to be a testimony to others and to help other women as well. So we want you guys to join us. Maybe that's not something that you are going through, but maybe you have a friend who is dealing with that. Tell her, that we're going to be talking about this, that we're going to be going on that topic, because again, we want to use these podcasts to be helpful in every area, in every situation of your life, the things that you're going through. So spread the word, let your friends know if they're going through that. We're excited to kind of, go there to deal with that topic and to help those of you find some encouragement that need that in that part of your life right now.
Right. And Lindsay is absolutely amazing. Like Kara said, she's been through it, but she has a testimony. She had a hot mess, and now she's got a hot message,
Yeah.
And she uses it. So if you've got any questions or concerns or anything like that you would like to talk to her about, or you would like her to touch on, let us know in the comments or send us private messages. That's fine. She is amazing. You'll love her just as much as we do. So So yes, thank you so much for being here and allowing us to be a part of your morning. And if you're on the replay, please say hello. And we will be back next week. No more vacations for a little while.
For a little while, yeah.
For a little while. But I'm still wearing my get up, so I'm ready to go back. You never can tell. All right. So thank you, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.